first try. Look at that. Hello and welcome to AutoMoments. And after a long winter, the old Ambassador started up on the first try. Thanks for riding along with me. Of course, this is my 1972 AMC Ambassador Brougham sedan, but we're not actually going to be talking about the car today. Today we're talking about 1980s AMC TV commercials.
You are about to leave the world of ordinary cars behind and make the Eagle switch. The revolutionary two-wheel, four-wheel drive American Eagle. The only automobile that lets you switch from two-wheel drive to full-time four-wheel drive. From high mileage on the road to high adventure off the road. Two-wheel drive luxury to four-wheel drive security. American Eagle. A switch from every car in the world from American Motors.
During the 1980s, AMC sent product training materials to dealerships on LaserDiscs, which, if you've never seen one before, they're these giant, shiny discs that at first glance look kind of like massive CDs, but they're actually used for video, and they're this fascinating technology that competed with tapes, and I don't want to get into the history of LaserDisc, although it is fascinating. But some people still have these dealership training LaserDiscs, and along with materials teaching you about all engine sizes and option packages and, you know, how much leather trim adds to the value of the car. But my favorite part is that they have commercials for the vehicles AMC was selling at the time. Now, the one you just watched was for the AMC Eagle Wagon, but they had another one for the sportier AMC Eagle SX4.
You are about to leave the world of ordinary sports cars and make the Eagle switch. The revolutionary two-wheel, four-wheel drive Eagle SX4. The only sport machine that lets you switch from two-wheel drive to full-time four-wheel drive. From high mileage on the road to high adventure off the road. Two-wheeling in style or four-wheeling in the wild. The Eagle SX4. A switch from every sports car in the world from American Motors.
A switch from every car in the world. Eagle. I just love buttons and switches, and I think that they really did a good job of selling this idea that, like, boom, it's this big dramatic thing. And years later, having actually driven an AMC Eagle, I have to say that it was somewhat anticlimactic when I first made the Eagle switch. And look, here's how easy it is. I just took us out of four-wheel drive right there. No locking hubs, no gear shifts, any of that kind of nonsense. And I remember being in high school doodling pictures of Eagle station wagons and pictures of, like, you know, the car flying through outer space, and they're making the switch from, you know, driving on Earth to driving in space, and, you know, the kind of stuff you doodle when you're a 16-year-old boy in Spanish class who doesn't want to learn the past participle form of different verb conjugations. But that wasn't the only commercial on that 1982 AMC LaserDisc. They also had Concord and Spirit, which had a slightly different ad campaign.
It seems like only yesterday they sparkled under showroom lights. Now they're rusted hulks. The tough Americans at American Motors think you should have something better, a car with a future. So Concord's the only American car built with something more durable than steel. Galvanized steel in 100% of the exterior body panels. That's right, 100%. So good as this high-mileage Concord looks today, its future looks even brighter. For 1982, more tough action from American Motors. We're torturing this 1982 American Motors Concord to make a point about warranties. The American Motors Buyer Protection Plan includes the only full warranty in the industry, covering every part for 12 months or 12,000 miles, even if it just wears out. The limited warranties from all other car makers don't give you that kind of protection. The tough Americans can back their high-mileage Concord like no other car because Concord can take it. More tough action from American Motors. Introducing the 1982 American Motors Spirit. Any car could rust under 30 feet of salt water, but we're showing it to make a point. Only the tough Americans from American Motors give you Z-Bart factory rust protection and a full 5-year no rust-through warranty. So when you hear durability claims for other high-mileage cars this year, just remember who backs their claim with the only 5-year warranty. More tough action from American Motors.
That handsome 1980s spokesperson is Sam Groom, who starred in the Canadian drama Police Surgeon, which I've never actually watched, along with a lot of other made-for-TV movies and things like that. But back then, he was the spokesperson of AMC's Tough Americans campaign, and the idea was that AMC's product lineup was pretty old by this point, but AMC very wisely decided to market these products as sort of the old, reliable kind of thing. So even though maybe Concord didn't have all the latest technology or styling, well, it was a reliable design you could count on. You know, it was quiet, it had a good engine. Now, as the 1980s moved on, Concord and Spirit became less important to AMC, and Renault products really became
the one to watch, the one to watch.
Renault.
And no Renault product, say that 5 times fast, was more important than the Alliance. And the sheer amount of advertising and print material and TV commercials and training videos and factory tours and news stories about the Alliance just prove how important this car was to AMC. The cool part about that as a historian is that there are tons of Alliance commercials to look at. Now, the one I'm going to show you is from the 1985 LaserDisc, so at this point the Alliance has already been out for several years.
The great cars of Europe priced out of reach. Until now, Renault bridges the gap between European technology and affordability. Renault Alliance with comfort for 5. And now introducing Alliance Convertible. Renault Alliance, fuel injected, fuel efficient. European technology from Renault, Europe's leading car maker. 6161, built in America and affordable.
The one to watch, the one to watch, the one to watch.
Renault.
I love the 1980s special effects for these commercials. You know, Renault Alliance, bridging the gap. And the car drives across, you know, the gigantic valley across 2 cliffs. They really wanted to push home that, oh, this is a European car, but it's built in America. And that's, you know, that was really important. Oh, hang on. Give space for the farmers here. Lots of farmers out spreading fertilizer at this time of year. So the Alliance was only part of Renault's product strategy. Yes, they imported a lot of vehicles from France. The Alliance was built in America, and another vehicle built in America was the Encore, which was basically a hatchback version of the Alliance. But the commercial for Encore is absolutely hilarious.
If you are what you drive, imagine yourself as a Renault Encore. Expressively sporty in outlook, stylishly European in design. Renault Encore, from Europe's leading car maker, built in America with independent suspension for amazing handling, electronic fuel injection for efficiency, and true to your ingenuity, you are affordable. $59.59. Are you what you drive?
I can see myself in a Renault Encore.
The one to watch, the one to watch, the one to watch.
Renault.
Picture yourself in a Renault Encore. It's like this dude in a red windbreaker transforms into a 1980s hatchback. Just the way that, like, the guy's sunglasses transform into sealed beam headlights. It was the 80s, and everything was ridiculous. But speaking of ridiculous in a different way, 1980s Jeep commercials were also a hoot. And I'm not going to say anything, I'm just going to play this one for you, and you can tell me what you think. If you like the Eagle switch sound effect, you know, the I love the sound effect. That means that some guy had to have been in a studio, you know, with a microphone, and there was some director who's like, okay, we want you to make a grunting sound like you're riding a buffalo. And that commercial was just a lot of fun. But here's the cool part about it. I actually interviewed former CEO of American Motors, Joe Cappy, and before he was CEO, he was vice president of marketing, and he actually brought up that commercial.
There's two problems with a buffalo. It's that they've got a sharp ridge in their back, not like a cow or a horse. And on top of it, the bristles were so sharp that they were getting bruised. But the ad was dynamite because the image was fun and games, and look at the stuff you can do, and you can be like Tarzan. That's the kind of impression that we wanted to leave with the consumer.
Of course, nowadays you would never be allowed to do a commercial with people riding a live buffalo. From a cost standpoint, it would probably be way cheaper to just, have them green screened in, or have, CGI for them riding a computerized buffalo. So by 1985, there was no longer an Eagle SX4. The line was just sedans and station wagons, and the station wagon was by far the bigger seller. So here are some commercials for the Eagle Wagon, but take note of how the tone is different from the commercials for the early 1980s Eagles.
Time to get Daddy at the airport.
It's really rainy.
We'll be just fine, honey.
With the flick of a switch, the American Eagle gives you the traction of four-wheel drive, because there are times when the most important thing your automobile can give you is confidence. Comfort, luxury, and the confidence of four-wheel drive. No ordinary wagon gives you that.
Hi, Daddy.
Hi, sweetheart.
Depend on Eagle from American Motors.
Dad, how come we're the only car moving?
The others are stuck.
Are we gonna get stuck too?
No, we'll get through just fine.
When the going gets tough, the American Eagle offers what no ordinary car can. The traction and confidence of four-wheel drive at the flick of a switch. No wonder Eagle's the official vehicle of the National Ski Patrol.
Dad, what if everybody drove an Eagle?
They'd put tow trucks out of business.
Depend on Eagle from American Motors.
Mommy, will the thunder make us late?
Don't worry, we'll be on time.
With the flick of a switch, American Eagle lets you shift on the fly from two-wheel drive to the sure-footed traction of four-wheel drive. Because sometimes security is the most important thing your car can give you.
They wouldn't have missed this for the world.
When nature makes it rain or snow, fight back. Make it Eagle.
But notice in these commercials, the Eagle never goes off-road, with the exception of the snow commercial. I guess there's that clip of it like driving over hills of snow, but they're marketing it as a security car for bad weather driving, which was sort of the impetus for the vehicle. If you go back and watch our AMC Eagle test drive video that I did, and we talk about Roy Lunn and the creation of the Eagle and how it sort of stemmed from this idea that lots of people were buying Jeeps, but they weren't actually taking them off-road. They were using them to drive on-road in foul weather. So the commercials are much less about adventure and style and much more about safety and security. And another thing about those commercials that stuck out to me is if you look at the shot of the Eagle pulling out of the garage, what car is parked next to it? A Mercedes! And that's no mistake. AMC was marketing the Eagle as an expensive vehicle. I mean, they were not cheap cars. Going back to our interview with Joe Cappy, I remember him telling us that market research showed a lot of people who owned Jeeps, especially the fancier ones like Wagoneers, also owned Mercedes vehicles. And then even on the Jeep XJs, you could get some pretty fancy interiors. And of course, that's something you can learn from watching the dealership training LaserDiscs. So the idea of having a high-end four-wheel drive vehicle parked next to a German luxury car was not that unrealistic. And speaking of the Jeep XJ, that's actually what our next set of commercials are for. We have a 1985 commercial for the Jeep Cherokee. We have a 1986 commercial for the Jeep Comanche pickup truck, which was based on the Cherokee. And then we have a 1986 Cherokee commercial.
Bronco 2 never made it. S10 Blazer 4x4 never made it. No four-wheeler ever made it until the new Jeep Cherokee became the first to win all 3 4x4 of the Year awards in 1984. And only Cherokee has a choice of 2 or 4 doors. And Cherokee lets you shift on the fly from 2 to 4-wheel drive. Get triple award-winning Cherokee performance in the one vehicle that made it, only in a Jeep.
The way you blew into town and looked all around, well, I knew right then that you were new. You looked so fine and you cut such a fine line that I knew what I had to do. So I'm keeping an eye on you, keeping an eye on you, watching every little thing you do.
There's a new truck on the road. It's called Comanche. It's built by Jeep. It's worth a look.
Jeep Cherokee has some advantages you ought to look into, like superior cargo room and room for 5, with a choice of 2 or 4 doors, and 4-wheel drive you can shift on the fly. But the most important advantage, Cherokee is all Jeep, inside and out.
When you go back and watch those commercials, you realize just how revolutionary it was. I mean, it was the only compact 4-door SUV. I don't know what I'm doing with my fingers here. It was the only compact 4-door SUV. Speaking of, look, there's a Jeep XJ right there, still delivering the U.S. mail. You know, 30 years later, the Postal Service is using Jeep XJs to deliver mail because they are that good. They were incredible vehicles and they revolutionized SUVs in America. And of course, the Comanche truck, it's just a sin how few of those were sold. I mean, anybody who has one will tell you they're awesome. It's just a shame that, you know, with the whole Chrysler merger, the Dakota sort of got preference over the Comanche. All the more reason to appreciate the Comanches that are still out there and still being taken care of. Then the last commercial on that list stuck out to me because even though it's from 1986, it feels like it's from 1996. It feels way ahead of its time in terms of the music, in terms of the color. You know, the color palette is that sort of orange, red, yellow kind of color, but it just feels very 90s. I mean, the special effects of how the camera flies through the vehicle and then floats out through the door, and the door just kind of, you know, dissolves back into the picture. Just, it feels like a 90s commercial to me. It doesn't feel like an 80s one. And then, of course, the narrator, I love it. Jeep Cherokee has some advantages you ought to look into.
Jeep Cherokee has some advantages you ought to look into.
Even in their final days, AMC was still building incredible products like the Cherokee, and I think that's a large part why Chrysler wanted to buy them. I mean, their financial picture was in a bad place, and Renault's finances especially were all screwed up because there were problems in France, but the products that they had were good. So those are some of my favorite 1980s AMC commercials. That's certainly not all of them. There's probably hundreds out there just sitting on VHS tapes in a stack in somebody's attic because, you know, back in 1984, Dad decided to record the ABC Sunday night movie. But nonetheless, I'm glad you tuned in to enjoy them with me. And as I mentioned at the start of this video, you know, a lot of things have changed in the last couple months. A lot of things have changed in the last couple days. And as this whole COVID-19 pandemic continues, we don't really know what's going to happen next, especially me. I mean, I'm just a guy who likes old cars. I'm not a doctor, but that's part of the reason why I wanted to do this video, because I think in times of crisis, it's important to have an outlet. And I think it's important to have things you enjoy. And I think there's a lot of people out there who enjoy old car commercials just like me. I think there are some lessons we can learn from the past. And to borrow a quote from our friend Sam Groom, don't sell the tough Americans short. Because I think we as a people are tougher than we know. And I think we have the knowledge and the work ethic to solve these problems, even though it won't be easy. You know, we'll all have to make some sacrifices. And wherever you're watching this from, whether you're quarantined in a big city or you're pulling a Hank Williams Jr. and you're just a country boy that can survive, I wish you and your family safety, and I hope you all stay healthy, and I know that we'll get through this.